Welcome back to another UML Operator Extra. And in this episode, we are going to review quite a few build updates in Sparx. Now, I'm not going to review everything. I'm just going to go over the items that I highlight. So each time we get a release, we have to go through a burn-in and test before we put into production use. So we're going to go through 1710, build 1710, which came out in May. We're going to go through build 1711, just touch on a couple of things which came out a month later in June. Then we're going to go through, touch on build 1712, which very minor, but it came out later in June. And then just a couple of days ago, we haven't even started testing on this. The hype around ChatGPT integration, we were hearing stuff back in previous build, didn't work. And we're going to try to talk a little bit more about this when we get to this one. So let's get started. First, I want to talk about if you're upgrading your licensing, if you go to help, you can come down here, check for updates. And when you launch this, you're going to get a window that says, hey, there's a new release that's out. And it is build 1713. It will tell you you're on build 1712. Now, typically what we do is we run through over 50 primary priority 1 test scripts before we move to stage, and then approval by governance before we move into production and distribute to all licensed users. And so what I want to do today is go through the release notes, starting with build 1710. Now, once you log in, you can get to the recent features. You can go through the release notes on each build. We're going to start at 1710 right here. So let's just go ahead and click on this, and we're looking at the release notes for build 1710 in version 17.1. And what I typically do is copy these notes over to Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program we're using, as long as we can collaborate and highlight and things like that. I'm not going to show you my notes, but I highlight certain things and make a lot of different notes as I'm looking through. Some of the changes are bug fixes, really don't care. They didn't impact me. They're in different areas that I may not be focused on at a particular time. Some of them are very interesting, real life changing things. I don't mean to get excited about it, but diagram hyperlinks have been updated to allow background colors. And when I saw that, I went, what? What does that mean? And so when we're looking at hyperlinks, and I just did a recent video on hyperlinks, you can now do a background color on the hyperlink. You just select the hyperlink, you go to layout, you go to background color, and you give it a color that means something to you. What's interesting about this is that if you're creating an inventory or a knowledge repository that includes various SQL and analytic views of your Sparx data, you can put a legend on it as what is important, what's less important, or what's relevant to release 1 versus release 2 versus release 3. You can highlight your hyperlinks, which I found was very interesting. So thank you, Sparx, for that one. The next one was that we were very interested in was shape scripts now render line style correctly. We've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm not going to demo that. I don't want this video to get too long. Maybe later on I will do that. I've done videos on shape scripts, but we had a lot of problems with line styles, and now they're rendering properly. Can't wait to demo that, show that. The next one was improved copy and paste elements from unsaved diagrams to ensure any unsaved diagram changes are included. This was a very good bug fix and greatly appreciated what was going on there. For documentation, a lot of great fixes in here and improvements. One was they corrected the document template editor to prevent new sections being inserted in protected text. This one was a little bit frustrating to us, so we were really happy to see that fix. So a lot of great stuff took place there. When we get down to user interfaces, the inspector context menu item is now available when you right click an element. That was kind of interesting. That wasn't available to us before, and now it is. So if you're an inspector freak like I am, that was a nice add to the user interface. Go down, some of these other ones, they really didn't stand out as big deals to us, but nice to read. So restore the toolbox behavior to ensure pinned. We've had toolbox issues, so I turned in a bug a few releases back. They fixed it. Still some minor issues. So especially when you're dealing with MDG technologies, that was a good one. So in 17.10, I talked about this in a few episodes. My diary was renamed to My Workbench. So in the start menu, start tab, I should say, when you're up here, now my diary is called My Workbench. So when you launch that, My Workbench, I've talked in previous episodes about my diary. They all work the same way. They just changed the name within the ribbon in the Start tab. They also updated the editor for My Workbench, formerly My Diary. So that was nice to see. That was a bug that was a little bit interesting. I use I got to keep now calling it My Workbench. I use it quite a bit when I'm just, logging my own thinking as I'm going through. Otherwise, I use Journal because I'm collaborating with the team. Ensure that view specification from disabled technologies. This was another big one to us, especially when we're developing MDG technologies. And I had a few modelers saying, I'm not seeing the view specifications. Well, you shouldn't be seeing it in those particular diagram types or things in Sparx. So yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be working. And now they're ensuring that they don't show, because it appears, but it didn't work. And that was the reason why it needed to be fixed. And thank you, Sparx, for fixing that. Added toolbar button menu. I made this one big. Create a new AI discussion. When I saw this, I went, what? What does that mean? Really doesn't do anything or much. And so if you're using various paid for MDG technologies via Open Service for Lifecycle Collaboration, OSLC, they're taking advantage of AI. I get frustrated when I see AI in anything because it's all the hype curve. And I got to warn all of you, especially when we get to build 17.13, there's a lot you do not want to share in an AI learning model. This is your proprietary data. You do not want your data. Don't trust any AI provider. Now, ChatGPT, I trust more than others. Grok, I trust a lot more than probably any of them. And I'm not going to mention any others, but just be very careful when you see AI in something, because especially if you're new to modeling, you need all the help you can, or your client stakeholders, they're not savvy to CASE, computer-aided software engineering, UML, or Sparx. And AI is going to be very good for augmenting their learning and understanding of what's taking place. So if your models or your learning models, or you've implemented AI within your firewall, locked out to the outside world, then you're good for the most part. If not, be very wary and careful. We're still in build 17.10, database engineering. Always get excited when I see this because I do a lot of engineering of databases, and not going to talk about each one of these. This one was very interesting to us. We did testing on it. We do a lot of MongoDB development, DDL scripts, and the fact that it supports the JS extension, file extension was very nice add. So there were some other fixes in 17.10 for database engineering, and we were happy to see them. We moved down to profile authoring. Model pattern elements sorted in browser will display that order in the model builder. Very nice. Thank you very much. Not a lot of people are interested in this, but if you're in MDG technology development and you're dealing with model patterns as you're building out your patterns and other things, you kind of want them to show in a particular order like we see in Sparx without having to hard code or do with anything else. For automation and scripting, I highlighted these. These were all very exciting for us when we're building out automation, when we're dealing with packages with file and or time-aware modeling in it. So maybe I'll do another demonstration of scripting and automation. And I've done a video on using ChatGPT to help you write your scripts. So hopefully we see proper representation from ChatGPT this time when we're getting help with writing our scripts and our automation. So other, maybe update XMI 2.4 and 2.5 export to include isID. Property on UML attributes and ports is very advanced subject area here. Keeping up with the OMG specification for XMI. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Then we go down to external integration, just some minor things in here, fixes that we thought were worth noting, and testing when we were going through the testing of build 17.10. Let's move to 17.11 now and talk about what took place there. So in general, not a lot of things for me to get excited about here. This one was very interesting because I just got in the habit of copying, pasting. So over in this project we've got going, I've got a journal with some simple journal text in it. It can be long or what have you. And then over on the right side, I have my workbench open. So my workbench, my diary going along here, and the journal, we're watching for journal entries from reactions or ads from my teammates. And there is if I right click in here, there's a push to, and then my workbench. We're going to go ahead and select it. It added this to my workbench. So before I would just copy and then I would put in my workbench, and then in my workbench, I would type my thoughts in my workbench. And so that was a cool ad. Appreciated it. I don't want to skim over that one. I went over it too fast. So again, push to. So these journals can actually fill up this whole page here. And sometimes you got to make the window a lot wider in order to read all the content that's going on. So you're getting feedback and direction. They're talking about specific elements. I highlight a certain paragraph, word, sentence, right click on it, push to, and then it just pushed what I highlighted. Instead of me having to copy, I can actually go through a journal, pick out specific subjects that I want to focus on in a given day, and that's today, and I can push it to my workbench for further analysis. So again, a great ad. All right, let me see if I can speed this up. This was cute. Really, we tested that. Okay, that was cute. A lot of good fixes in here as we're going through. I'll let you read those on your own. Let's get into automation and scripting fixes in build 17.11. So they corrected the behavior when assigning multiple stereotypes. It worked for us. I was asking the team, what behavior are they talking about? Do we have any problems? And it's specific to security enabled models. So we have security enabled models, didn't see any necessary issues or bugs that stood out, but I guess it was big enough for it to be a fix for build 17.11. I'm going to probably skip over some of these. I'll let you read those. And if you've got questions, you can post in the comments down below. Let's get into build 17.12 next. So in build 17.12, which came out pretty fast after 17.11, there was just some general ads, and that was corrected loading of model add-ins with dependencies, and then validation of scale limit for a database column. It has been corrected in the docked properties window. We were having minor issues, and what we would do is just kind of close and reload or reload the project, and it would pick it up. So that fix was nice to see. So let's jump into 17.13. And really, I just got this. We haven't even started testing. We may start this weekend, not sure, but let's just step through them and talk about them for a second. So in build 17.13, which was released August 8th, just a few days ago, when I saw legend dialog applies to, I got really concerned because we have a lot of legends that are out there that other modelers on older versions that they haven't afforded to upgrade or keep their license updated, but yet needed to, in their older versions, look at the models and understand the legends. When we get into applied to that, there's a lot to choose from that you're applying your legend to. And we were stating that, well, what's changed over versions? Why is this important? So we got a lot of testing to do on that. We test all the way back to version 14 now. We pretty much have retired anything before that, but we have a lot of users that are on version 14. Few are still on 13 and 12 for some reason. They need to get to 17, just too much value there. Improved diagram rendering when auto coloring legends. I've talked about this a great deal on our channel. We'll test that to see what improved diagram rendering means. We have not had an issue. SysML, I'm going to skip over this one. I hope to get to a series on SysML. Correct connector notation settings for diagrams. We don't do a lot of information engineering. I don't take advantage of that. We do information engineering, don't get me wrong, but using IDE F1X. So we'll test that and was going through. We have one project that's dealing with that, and I'll talk more about that maybe later. Quick linker behavior. We can't wait to test. I can't wait to test this one. We're getting into some updates to some of our MDG technologies, see whether that impact is going to show there. But quick linker in general is very important in Sparx. All right, we're getting to the elephant in the room, and that's ChatGPT integration with Enterprise Architect. That's Sparx Enterprise Architect. And this is basically a copy and paste out of ChatGPT. And their response is embedding ChatGPT in Sparx Enterprise Architect basically came out August 8th, 2025. And that's build 17.13. And we're going to do a lot more research on this. Maybe I'll do a video on this. But basically what it's stating is this enables the tool, EA, to understand the currently selected elements in active diagram by using placeholders. These are hashtags. So hashtags around element, diagram, and I'm sure there's more, right? And the example they give is summarize the role this element, hashtag element, plays in the following diagram, hashtag diagram. And then I'll let you go ahead and read on more from that. The point is that if you're working on a very sensitive model, sensitive data, non-disclosure agreement, NDA project, you have a new product release that's really ahead of everyone else, and you do not want the world to learn and copy and take from your intelligence, don't share your models outside of your firewalls. Build your AI learning models inside your firewalls. Certainly, you're going to plug into outside learning models. Some of the AI platforms allow you to internalize the learning models that you either bought and paid for or that you're using. And as long as you're inside your firewalls, your data, and you trust your data is secure, then go for it. Otherwise, be very careful about sharing your intelligence to the outside world, outside of your firewalls. Okay? I'll talk more about this. I've talked about this for the last couple of years. I've talked about AI. I've demonstrated ChatGPT and helping you create script automation and other things. So I just really want you to be careful when you're dealing with anything with AI in the tagline or machine learning in the tagline. All right, we're going to wrap up now. I hope this episode was helpful for you. I can't overemphasize the need to test these builds before you go out into production. If you have 80 to 800 plus modelers, some builds are good in Sparx and some of them introduce new problems, especially if you have a mixed license environment. Hopefully you don't. We recommend that if you're going to move your company or shop to the next build, that you test it and you move it out for everyone. So that's it for the builds. Wow. I've never seen this many builds come out this fast out of Sparx, and I've been using Sparx for over 20 years. I'm not affiliated to Sparx. They don't pay me to talk about Sparx, demonstrate, or give them kudos. I just love Sparx. I have many case tools in my tool belt. Sparx is my favorite, and I hope to get into Plant UML and get into Dry.io very soon. That was actually supposed to be the episodes that are coming out right now, but I'm getting a lot of questions from you subscribers, and I'm trying to get back and answer those, demonstrate those as fast as I can. The queue is a little large, and I apologize to some that I've been late on your requests, but keep them coming. We'll put them in the queue and try to get back on these subjects. All right. So until that next episode, happy modeling.